Randolph, this is attorney, deputy attorney on behalf of the state. We both parties in the presence of our jury.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
I am here.
Whenever you're ready, you can begin your vote.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as I told you at the very beginning of this case, it is really, really hard to plan the perfect murder. And now that you've seen all the evidence, you can see how difficult it was for Mr. Randolph to try to pull this off. Because when you looked at all the evidence, now that you've heard it all, it is abundantly clear he completely failed. He completely failed. Why? Because his story doesn't add up. It doesn't add up with what you see physically at the scene. It doesn't add up in the manner in which he discusses his wife. It doesn't add up with how he treats his wife. It doesn't add up when you see the insurance policies. It doesn't add up when you start thinking about his relationship with Michael Miller. None of it makes sense if you're painting the story that you're the victim. But in this story, he's not a victim. He's a villain. He has hatched this plan to get rid of his wife, get out of debt, go off with his girlfriend, and take $332,000 and a home. That was the plan. But he got caught. The credibility of a witness. This is a really, really important instruction. You should consider someone's manner upon the stand, their fears, their motives, their interests, the reasonableness of their statements, and the strength and weaknesses of their recollection. And here's the best part. If you believe someone has lied about any material fact in the case, you may disregard the entire testimony of that witness or any portion of his testimony which isn't proved by other evidence. And that, ladies and gentlemen, when we start evaluating the statements that he makes in these walkthroughs, is a problem. Because it's not proved by other evidence. It's contradicted by other evidence. It's repelled by other evidence.
That instruction deals with witnesses and witnesses, not the defendant's statement, please.
I can move on.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that instruction does deal with the credibility of the witnesses who testified before you.
So, what does he have to say about himself?
I'm a cocky fucker. Always have been. But I'm also really nice and generous. I'm reasonably honest.
Really honest. The defense closing claims that the shooting happened just as the defendant said it did. Well, let's take a look at this. This are the shots that Dr. Gavin explained to us, right? What we can see here, there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We don't know the exact order, but what we do know is this. When you look at shots 1, 2, 4, and 5, they all come on the left side of Michael Miller's body. And here's what's really interesting, right? So make sure I don't forget my left and my right. So you got this first shot, right? It's coming in from the left temple. See, I'm doing it wrong again. It's coming in from the left temple, and it's going across the head and up, right? From the left. You got the second one from the left side, and it's coming straight down, right? You got the fourth shot, which is coming in the left side, and it's lodging in his abdomen. You got a fifth shot that's penetrating through that elbow and through the forearm, and it's coming out in this direction. And then lastly, you have a third shot that's entering up an abdomen to the right, and it's going essentially straight up in the air like this. That's really, really important. The directionality of these shots. Why? Watch where he says he is, and watch where he says Miller is.
As we got up in here, he kind of rushed up on me a little bit, and that's when I just pushed him. Boom, boom, boom. And he started going out toward the shed. I don't know how many times I shot him, but I just kept right going. Boom, boom, boom. And he's just laying there. Just laying there now.
So, you've seen the other videos where if you're in the position of Mr. Randolph kind of standing in that doorway, he says Miller is across from him. He's facing this direction. If we're at a diagonal angle here, ladies and gentlemen, where's my left side? It's here. If you're shooting from this angle at me, how in the world does shot number 1 go through my left temple and up in the air? That's not a thing. That defies physics. Look at shot number 2. If I'm standing here at the left and there's an initial volley of shots, how in the world am I getting shot from up here and it's coming straight down? That's not happening either. Look at shot number 4. If I'm standing at this angle and I'm being shot here and it's lodging through, how is that bullet curving? What is this, like JFK and the magic bullet? It's not a thing. It defies physics. And then look at shot number 5. That shot is actually coming from the back of the elbow and out. The only other shot that actually direction-wise works is shot number 3. It's here, except it's going straight up towards the ceiling. How is that possible? The answer is it's not. It's not. It just isn't. And just looking at this, we know what he said makes no sense whatsoever. But again, what direction would he really need to be? Think about it for a second. What does he say happened? He says, oh, he's walking away from Sharon. He turns towards me. I push him, and then he's kind of moving this way. And then maybe ultimately, once the fire, he kind of turns and starts making his way. If all these shots are on the left, with the exception of shot number 3, you know what direction Mr. Miller has to be looking to be hit by any bullet if he's in that doorway? He has to be looking at Sharon. He has to be looking at Sharon. That's how you could maybe get shot number 4 if he's looking at Sharon. But here's the thing. It didn't happen the way he said it happened. It happened in the garage, and he didn't tell the police how it went down in the garage. He concocted this story. Words matter. Words matter. And his words don't add up.
And when I heard that noise, it really did scare me. Like, boom, boom. Except the door hadn't come down. It stayed just like it was open. And I actually got close. Boom, boom.
So let's look at that shot, right? In this version, Miller's on the ground. His feet are going back towards Sharon. You've seen the photos. You've seen the pools of blood. Miller's head is kind of right in front of the fender of that car, right? But if you look at, he is saying that's when he does the 2 headshots from a fire extinguisher. We'll get to that, right? That's what he says. So if you've got a left shot going up and across your head, but your head is here, how in the world, if he's at your feet and he's shooting like this, how does he do that? He said he's on the ground. How is that possible? It's not. It is not. What he said happened did not add up. That makes no sense. Is it a dynamic situation? Yeah, probably. When you double cross the guy who we thought, hey, I'm going to get some money here, they're probably hanging out of the garage and he just double crosses him. So is there some dynamics in the garage? Absolutely. But here's the thing. We don't know because he didn't tell that story. He invented this other thing that doesn't add up. But the last headshot is left in going down. If Miller is lying with his head by the fender, how is that possible? He says those 2 headshots are done on the ground, not while he's falling. Remember, because the fire extinguisher scared him so much that he did a couple more finishing shots. That gunshot, if Miller is truly on the ground with his feet towards Randolph, with his feet towards Sharon, that bullet is coming back towards Tom. How is that a thing? It's not. Why? Because it's not true. It didn't happen the way he said it happened. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first little step that you can look at. It's not a little step. It's a huge step where you can move towards, we have proven this case beyond a reasonable doubt, just by taking him at his word. Taking him at his word. He's already guilty of this. And the ski mask. There's a lot of talk by the defense about, oh, look at the linen and the tying and this and that. Maybe it really is, maybe it is just the one that the Millers described that they had. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Here's the deal with the ski mask. He says it's perpetually on until the very end. He notices it off in the aftermath. But this is what Randolph says.
I was actually in the room and he came in and kind of we bumped into each other and he had the mask thing on, but like it wasn't on. He thought it was black because it wasn't all the way down. It was like maybe to here or something. Maybe it pushed it up.
Maybe to here. Maybe to here. He's not saying it's draped on his shoulder or it's sitting right here at the top. He's saying it's down at least here. He says, I can recognize him because I can see the chin, but the mask is here. Think about the 2 headshots. One's coming down and the other one's going across. The mask should catch those shots, but they're not there. I might have pushed this mask up because I'm taller when we came in here.
Well,
But
you're
just,
pushing it down, I mean, short.
pardon me?
You'd be pushing it down, not up, right?
Well, I'd be pushing it kind of sideways. I wasn't like knocking it off or anything with my hands.
Probably on the back of the head. Could you tell it was Mike yet?
I knew it was Mike because of his chin. Because I don't know if he had his mask on then. It seems like he still had his mask on then.
He had his mask on when you were
Yeah,
backing away, right?
he had his mask on there for sure.
Well, when you're back here and you squared off on, you still have his mask on?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when he went between him now turning and you continuing to shoot and him going to the ground, he still got his mask on.
I think so. As I remember, the mask wasn't all the way down. It was like rolled up one roll from about right here. As I remember it.
And that's the point, folks. That mask is on during this firefight. Using his words. He notices it afterwards. To be fair to him, he says, after it was over, I did kind of notice it lying next to him. But he never described in any of these interviews like the process of removing it. The state would submit to you that what happened is this. Miller wears the mask so he doesn't have to be face-to-face with Sharon. Using your common sense, and that's an instruction. You don't have to leave that at the door. There's something called guilt, right? There's probably, and think about, here's something, you can give it whatever weight you want. But remember Michael Byer? He said at the Easter time, which is a couple days before this all goes down, he said it looked like Miller was thinking about something or concerned or something was right. He's literally, think about that. Miller's literally sitting, breaking bread with this woman that he's about to execute. Think about that for a second. Could that be a reason why you wear the mask? And then think about this, right? Then once the job is done, it's like, great, I can pop that off. I got my baseball cap that I actually always wear. I got my change of clothes because this is really a burglary. I'm just lying in wait for this woman. So he takes the mask off and then he double crosses it. And that's why it drops by the side of his body. That's why there's no holes in the mask, because he's not wearing it when he shoots him. They're probably just chit-chatting. So the real question on all the mask up is, where are the bullet holes in the blood on the mask? And if the answer is they ain't there, that means his story ain't true. Facts can be inconvenient sometimes, and they are stubborn. And there's no getting around this. That is a problem for the defendant. And there are even more problems. Here's one. Defendant's story about 911 locating the gun near Miller versus the actual 911 call regarding locating the gun near Miller. Let's take a listen. Here's how he describes it. Him talking to 911 when he finds the gun near Miller.
And I'm talking to the guy, and I said, I don't see the gun. I says, there's some bags of stuff here. I says, there's my bag. I says, I'm in the bags, and he's got one of my bags, and it's the bag that is in there on the living room table. That I think it's a Walmart bag. And he says, well, find the gun. It has to be in there.
Find the gun. It has to be in there. There's my bag. Remember, a lot of people, all back and forth going on. He continues.
And I went over here looking to see if I could see the gun. And about that time, the timer went off on the garage door. And it just went black in here. And it just scared the living hell out of me. So I got back about right here and just kind of stepped real big because I knew he was over there, and turned the door back on. Turned back around, told him I couldn't find it. He told me it has to be there. If he had a gun, it has to be there. Carefully roll him over and see if it's there, or something about rolling him over. And I just put my foot on him and up on the shoulder and kind of pushed on him and kind of tilted that way. And when he did, then he kind of went like this, and I reached down right here. Let's see if he was laying this way. It would have been this hand. It would have been this hand, because he was laying. He was laying something like this, but on his head. And when I pushed him over, then his hand dropped down, and it was right here under this hand. It wasn't. He wasn't holding it, but it was in. His hand was right by it. He was holding it, I'm assuming, but he wasn't holding it then. And I picked it up by the. I picked it up by the. I think by the wood part on it, and brought it in here. Told the guy I got the gun. He said, throw it, put it somewhere in another room where it's safe, and lock the door. So I locked the door, except this is a lot faster.
Right. What a story. I look down. Here's my bags. It's in the bag. It should be there. You got to keep looking. I don't know. I'm going to step over. Oh, the light. Still on the phone. Can't seem to find it. I got to step back over him. Oh, 911. You should nudge him over, but carefully. Okay, I'll do it. And then, I dig down and there I found it. Right. That's the story he chose to tell. Wait for it. Let's actually listen to 911.
So let's put this thing down. Get my gun. Don't seem to be moving. I got the gun. Okay, you guys got away from him? Yeah, okay, then focus on your wife. Put her flat. I'm going to walk to the watch so you can get in. Okay. Sir, you got to do this with him. Okay. Put her flat on her back. Oh, fuck, there's blood everywhere.
Does one sound a little different than the other? Absolutely. They're not even close. That's not even close. There's no back and forth. There's no encouragement from 911. None of that. It didn't happen. Which brings me back to what Ms. Weckerly said, the unreliable narrator. Because literally, his whole, it's a house of cards. And it's literally collapsing. Every time you start to fact check him, it's a problem. It's a problem for him. That didn't happen. What he said happened in the walkthrough is a fantasy. It did not happen. And I would submit to you, I don't think this distinction is what their defense expert would suggest as being like a slight deviation. That's huge. But it sounds good, right? It sounds traumatic. It paints him as the hero. You've got to find that gun, sir. You can do it. And I found it. Yay. That's the whole deal. But there was something else he said in there, which I don't know if you guys noticed. He said something about the gun. What he said was, I'm going to get my gun. You may not have noticed it, but we're going to play it again. Now, what you need to understand is timing. Context is key. At this point in the phone call, he calls and says, my wife's been shot. They transfer FD to do medical. And then he offers a suggestion of, instead of me doing CPR, maybe I should go find this guy's gun, right? He doesn't know at this point what gun it is because he hasn't located it yet, right? He hasn't located it. But listen to what he says before the search starts for the gun near Miller.
Whoa,
my gun? My gun? How did you do that? How did you know? I would submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that he knew it was his gun because he already knew the plan. It's a slip. It's a slip. And that's why it's hard to try to plan the perfect murder, because you never know. Just like not knowing that Bartlett would be outside, kind of listening for his shots. But it's like the slip about the keys in the safe that Ms. Weckerly brought up. Remember, he takes the report. He's like, oh, he's got my house. How would you know that? But the report's not telling you that. But you magically knew that? You knew it because he gave him the keys. Take these safe keys. I know where that gun is. And that's the slip. The shopping bags. The defense, in their opening, made a huge point of emphasis about the shopping bags. And the state totally agrees. It's really, really important. But not for the reason that they think. Right? They take a look at these bags and go, ah, that's how you know he's a murderer. He wanted the jewelry. Right? Look at those two big bags filled with stuff. Jewelry falling out of it. There's literally jewelry on the toolbox, right? Her watch is there. A lot of jewelry. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at scenes and pictures of this house, how did it look? Did it look tidy? Did it look a mess? State would submit to you, that is a really clean house. Far cleaner than mine. I mean, it's almost yeah, like there are things stored away, but everything's kind of put away. But what we have here is a bunch of clothing that don't belong to Sharon and Tom, and all of her jewelry sitting out right by the doorway. So here's the thing. Look, there's more jewelry. Here's the deal. If those bags are right at the doorway doorway into the house, and they're filled and overflowing with Sharon's jewelry, why doesn't Sharon say anything about it when she walks in? Right? She walks in the door. She goes, hey, what's all my jewelry doing here? Why didn't that happen? And here's the other thing. Why doesn't the defendant say he notices those bags too when he walks in for the very first time? The state will submit to you. Oh, one other thing to remember. Remember the walkthrough. The defendant says Miller has nothing in his hands in the hallway. Here's the video.
He didn't have anything in his hands, right?
In his hands?
Right. Did he have anything in his hands here?
No, he was
So, those bags, if you believe his story, they have to be there before. So the burglar, decided that he's going to leave them in the closed garage, even though he came through the back door. He's going to put them in the garage for some reason and leave them there. And then Sharon's not going to notice it, and he's not going to notice it. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. The state would submit to you if either one of them innocently walked in and noticed a pile of their belongings and jewelry spilled out in front of the door. They would have been like, yo, what is that? I'm not going into the house. Maybe something's afoot. But that didn't happen. But the state would submit to you those bags were not there when Sharon walked in. The state would submit to you they were never in the garage when Sharon got home. But the state, and here's the thing, that we would argue the defendant states the shopping bags. That's what they said in their closing. We disagree. That is not our theory. Here's the state's theory on this. Miller's carrying those bags into the garage after he killed Sharon, and he's walking into the garage for the defendant. And then he double crosses them. That's what we submit to you. The bags appear to be dropped and spilled out because he's caught unawares. Just like the hat's on the ground, just like the shopping bag is on the ground, just like one of the shoes is falling out because he's making off with the stuff. Take the jewelry, we'll stage it like a burglary, we'll say somebody came in, he's like, cool, 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 and they're just walking out to the garage because that wouldn't be the normal exit point. And then he double crosses them. That's how the bags get there. Here's something. The defendant changes where each revolver is located, depending on whatever interview you're listening to. So he creates two different locations for the gun near Miller. The first interview, he says it's up in his pants, and in the walkthrough, it's actually up by his left hand.
I went through the bag, looking for the gun, because I didn't see the gun. As it turned out, he was, I guess it was up in his pants or underneath him anyway. He'd fallen on it. And he told me it has to be there. If he had a gun, it has to be there. Carefully roll him over and see if it's there, or something about rolling him over. and I just put my foot on him and up on the shoulder and kind of pushed on him and kind of tilted that way. And when he did, then he kind of went like this, and I reached down right here. Let's see if he was laying this way. It would have been this hand. It would have been this hand, because he was laying something like this, but on his head. And when I pushed him over, then his hand dropped down, and it was right here under this hand. He wasn't holding it, but it was in, his hand was right by it. He was holding it, I'm assuming, but he wasn't holding it then. And I picked it up by the, I think by the wood part on it.
Those are two different locations. It couldn't be more different. He also creates two different locations of where he discovered the 38 that killed Sharon that night. Here's what he says in his first interview.
Check on Sharon. So you go up and you check on Sharon. I tried to roll her over. I tried to talk to her. I bent down, and that's when there was the gun was there, because I bent down on it. It was laying somewhere in that vicinity. And
Near Sharon.
Near Sharon, yeah. It was actually pretty close to her because my knee was on it.
He says that he bends down on his knees and he's close to Sharon and he feels the gun next to his knee. That's what he says in that interview. Watch what he says in the walkthrough. Oh, well, there's a continuation of this.
Okay, and then in the music room, there's another revolver.
That's the one that was right by Sharon. And when I went down on my knees, I could feel it. And that's the one I picked up. And I got a little 22 mag, and when you put it on safety, you turn the cylinder.
So now listen, just 1 week later, listen to what he says here. Now remember, this is the area where Sharon's body is, right? Her head's kind of near that doorway, and that's the general area that she is. Listen to how he describes now discovering the gun.
And I remember the box was under here and it was slick. And I tried to push the box like that back, trying to get the leverage. And there was the other gun, another gun laying right here. And I picked it up, and I don't know why for sure that I was gonna check it to see if it was loaded. And I don't know why, because I know guns better than this. I don't know revolvers that much, but I pushed the revolver, the button of the cylinder drops open, and I'm thinking more like a safety button or something. But anyway, I just pushed it, and I could see that the cylinder was starting to come open. So I just closed it back and just threw it back, just dropped it right there, and started doing the chest compulsions, compressions.
Those are two different locations. Again, it's not consistent. And it's strange. But he mentioned something earlier in that video. It's kind of a nice segue. He talks about moving a box. He says, I'm moving a box. And when you look at the video, you can go back and check it. He's moving a box, which is really near that bloody area to the left of Sharon. He says, I'm sliding. He says, it's slick, right? He says, and I move that box into the drum room. If you go back and watch it, he slides a bloody box into the drum room. Well, folks, that's the state of what the blood looked like in the drum room. You will notice there is no transfer there. And where's the box? There's no box. There's the gun, but there's a box of food, but it's on the opposite side. And if you notice, it's not covered in blood. There's not transfer there either. These facts are totally wrong. The fire extinguisher. There's a lot to do about the fire extinguisher. So why is this significant? Listen, it's the defendant that brings the fire extinguisher into the equation. He states, that's the reason why I have to shoot him 2 times in the head. It's for that reason. I don't know why the defendant says that. Maybe he thought 2 more headshots of a guy on the ground was excessive. I don't know. But the problem is when you start to fact check, that's where problems happen for the fire extinguisher. This is a super tiny house, so they've been what? Leaving, presumably, there was no indication this fire extinguisher had just fallen off the wall bracket. There's a fire extinguisher bracket there. There is a screw kind of hanging out. You have witnesses. You can evaluate their credibility, see if they're making that up or not. You had 2 witnesses talking about it, but they're documenting it. The state would submit to you, I don't believe the Randolphs, if they really were loose things on that garage floor, or they're just going to leave it there. If truly that thing fell off months and weeks ago, they probably would have just thrown it in the trash. If the state would submit to you, that's not what happened. I guess maybe Mr. Randolph thought the 2 headshots is just too much. So now I have to come up with something to scare me to make me do it. So he comes up with the fire extinguisher. The problem is it's affixed to the wall. So he pulls it off the wall. And when you look at the gap, if that thing is really hanging on the wall, you would seriously have to tilt that fridge all the way over just to reach it. And then all that other stuff is coming down. The fan, the crock pot, all that stuff. You go look, just look. It's just a common sense. You look at it. And that's why it doesn't add up. And then you've got, look, Detective O'Kelly kind of does the banging thing. Sure. Is it an inexact thing? Yeah. Give it how much weight you want. But the purpose of he brings it in. In the statement submitted, he brought it in to, I guess, sort of justify doming him twice in the head. It just doesn't add up when you actually kind of look at the surrounding evidence. And it goes more to his credibility than anything. Did the defendant actually call 911 3 times? No. Here's
I
what he
came
says.
back over and didn't have my phone, and it keeps falling off of me. I come back through here and just kind of, just didn't know what to do and just kind of looking around. And I dialed 911 and the phone didn't work. I remember saying, fuck, what a time for Vonage to go out.
So his first explanation is it's Vonage's fault, right? But he actually changed it just a couple sentences later.
Came back out. Come through here, I tried actually about right here. I take it back about right here. I tried 911 again and it was busy. When I called 911, it was busy. So I said, good, it's not Vonage. And I got back over here where I could kind of see everything. I called 911 again, and that's when whoever said 911 and said, slow down, you're breathing too hard, slow down, whatever. And what's the emergency? And
So in his first breath, he's blaming Vonage for it. In his second breath, he's actually blaming 911 dispatch. That's the reason why you're hearing from people affiliated with 911. To explain to you, there was no mass event that would have caused a busy city. But one of the things that we did collect, and it's in evidence, and people did testify to it, but you didn't quite see it, but it's on the CD, is we actually have the Vonage records. And look, there it is. He dialed 911 once. It's 18 minutes long, which is consistent with that 18-minute 911 recording. It's in UTC time. You see it says 3:44 on the 9th. So if you go back 7 hours, it's going to get you, or maybe it's 8 hours, depending on the time of year. It's going to get you to 8:45, right? Even look at that, right? If it's 3:44, right? 8:44, right? So that's what's there. So do you see multiple busy signal calling, missed calls, nothing like that? And you'll see in those records, like sometimes some of those calls are a second long, right? So the bottom line is he didn't call 3 times. He didn't. He called once at 8:44:54. So, interesting thing. Defendant's also inconsistent on motives as to why Mike go there on that night. One example is this.
Why was it that he broke into your house? This was leaving the next day, and I would figure the Mexicans did it.
Okay, so he was going to do it to blame the Mexicans. But you could have broken into his house either the week before or week after and still blamed on the Mexicans, right? In theory, you could, right? What's so unique about that night that really makes them go, aha, it's Mexicans that are doing it? Nothing. It makes no sense, right? And here's the thing, and Ms. Reckerly kind of nailed it. If you're trying to make it seem like a stranger did it, you forcibly break into the house. You don't use the keys. If you're trying to blame it on a stranger, you don't use the keys. That means it's an inside job.
There's apparently non-junkies out there that rob your house and shoot you for $300-400 worth of cheap ass guns.
So now he twisted it, right? Now it's, Mike is the non-junkie. He will shoot your wife to steal cheap-ass guns. If that's the theory, why does Mike abandon the 38? Oh, I'm there for cheap-ass guns. I'll leave one behind right next to this lady. That makes no sense. That's not true. The reason why he's there is because the one thing that was going to be there that night that isn't there the week before and is not there the day after is Sharon. Because you get her out of the picture and $332,000 is coming in. And that's a lot better than cheap-ass guns, and it's a lot better than that bag of jewelry. Miller went to the home on that night because Sharon was the target. He also admits in those interviews that Miller would have no motive to kill her. He says that in the interviews. In this case, the state would submit to you that Miller acted on behalf of his co-conspirator, the defendant. Here's another thing. Was the defendant withdrawing money that day or depositing money that day? Let's check the tape.
Did you go to jet ski dealer?
Yes, I'm going to go to the jet skis because that's what I told him. I'm taking some money out of the bank and just looking to buy jet skis.
Okay, so on May 9th, he's like, I've already taken money out and we are going to buy jet skis.
So back to Miller. Well, I mean, how was after? Is there anything
I can't tell you.
at all that happened that day that made him believe that he needed to get into your house that night?
I did. I took 20 grand out of the bank. I had 20 grand transferred there in Utah.
Okay, so on these two statements, it's I have money already out of the bank, right? I've got the cash on me. But
No, I was going to go get 7 or 8 grand out of cash And Spike's been with me, but I've been there and I get the cash and I put it in, send it to Lizzie's mom. And I get a check and send it to Lizzie's mom.
So he's been with you then when you've had large amounts of cash.
I always got large amounts of cash, but yeah, of course he has. And he wanted to go with me to the bank that night, and because I knew more on money, but Sharon called and said, come home. And
So you never made it to the bank.
didn't make it to the bank.
So he switches it in the very same interview. He says, well, actually, we're going here to withdraw 6,000 to 7,000, but we don't quite get to the bank. Which one is it?
Because we had reservations for 6:30. So I missed the bank, but I was going to get $7,000 or something out. And I thought there's only because I was going to buy a jet ski, I think. I was going to go run around first and see if it hurt me too bad. But
So do the bank records reflect that, at least the ones you have before you? He's got $815 in his Washington Mutual account. He's got $2,297 in the joint account. Where was he going to withdraw $6,000 from? Where? Check the records, it ain't there. And then we know from the Experian records, he's already in the hole 84 grand. The state would submit to you, they spend the day together to get the plan straight. They ain't buying jet skis, they're not doing bank withdrawals, they're getting ready for the big night. And here's a motive, ladies and gentlemen. Defendant's financial situation is dire. I think their own expert witness said that money is a clear motive to kill someone. Even he gets it. Here are the assets in his joint account. I made a little kind of chart here for you to kind of see. Take a look. In May, that's that starting balance. At the beginning of that month, it's $1,000. It ends by the end of the month with over $2 grand in it, almost $2,300. But like, if you look at month after month, like they're not making a ton of money jointly. Look from October. It's like $1,100, $1,000, $1,400, $1,300, $1,100. They don't have a ton of money. Here's his Washington Mutual. It starts like gangbusters. There's like 117 deposited, but literally by the time in August of 07, but by the time you get to April of 08, that encompasses her debt, like he's only got $800 in there. And then by the end of the month, he's down to $15. He does not have a lot of money. And here's the outstanding debt. And you can look at that by just counting it up in the Experian records. $84,808. That's a lot of money. So add to the fact that Sharon has a gambling problem, that's an additional motive to get rid of her. She is costing him too much. He did not sign up for this.
So Sharon,
I mean, she was a lot.
a lot is, for me, a lot is $20.
I just $20 worth of blood, and that seems like a good deal when I'm not stuck up here. But $20.
What did she, what's a normal day at the casino for her?
Until she maxed out all these new credit cards that she didn't have, that all of a sudden she has, and
With you on it? Is that your house?
no, I learned that early on. One of the times I left her was under that.
It says in there, he's left her before because of money issues. Look, and here's the thing. On this account, he's not wrong. I mean, she gambles more than arguably the average person. In the last month of her life, she put $23,000 into a slot machine. That's a lot. It's a lot.
But she had $41,000 in her IRA, and the first year I didn't go to taxes with her. And this year I did, because we found out we had to file jointly. If we didn't file jointly married, we was really going to get fucked. And if we filed jointly married, we just got fucked a little bit. And I don't like getting fucked at all. And I found out that she spent $19,000 out of her IRA this year and won $1,500. And last year she spent the other $21,000 and won $17,000, I believe is what they said.
And he's explaining, like, this is having tax consequences for him. And he's just discovering this. These are motives to not want to be with her anymore. And what I was saying, and there's a portion of that interview where he gives her like another $5 grand, like he gave Lizzie $5 grand, and then he felt bad about giving her, so he gives her, and then he's like, and then she burned through that too. Like, if there's a point he complains about. So the bottom line is, like, Sharon is spending too much money. We would submit according to the defendant. And here's the thing, other family members talk, like Sharon's not the best with money, and Sharon does gamble. But at the end of the day, that is a motive for him to want to get out from under this, especially if at the other end of the rainbow is $332,000 in a house, right?
I don't care. I saw I want to talk taxes with you guys. This year I found out because I was legally married to her that all of my Social Security count as did hers. So this year, instead of getting $4,000 back, I actually had to pay taxes, and it's locked up in Sharon's account, which, I also gave her money because she said she was overdrawn, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if she put it in or not, because I can't get access to it.
So he's not thrilled now. He's gonna have to pay taxes this very year. He just discovered it. It's another factor. And then
It's
this.
not that I gotta pay her ex-husband's back taxes. He was on brain cancer about the same time my wife was having her heart problems, and he refinanced the house and took a bunch of money out of some account or something. And they died and pay taxes on it. Sharon didn't take care of it.
So now he's on the hook for an ex-husband that he has no connection to whatsoever. Could that be another reason why to do it? May not be the biggest one, but like it's starting to add up, right? Of course. And then you have another motive. Liz gave him the ultimatum around February of 2008. Pick one of us. And what did she say happened? He said, I'll take care of it. And that naturally then brings us to the pros and cons of murdering her. If Sharon is alive, there's no more Liz. He's 84 in debt. No real income to speak of because Philippe's nest egg is gone. And you heard testimony from family members about that it was there kind of at the beginning and then it's gone. You have a wife with a massive gambling problem. Joint filings are now causing him to pay taxes. Now they're finally legally married. And now he's responsible for paying another guy's back taxes. What's on the other end of the rainbow? If she kills her, well, you get Liz, 332 in K in life insurance, a home to inherit, no more gambling or spending issues. I mean, if it's math and not morals, makes sense. So what happens in February of 2008? The defendant even says, and you can check it, when he's talking in interview number 1 about interacting with Mr. Miller, he says, once I decide to use him, I call him. Not it's the meeting in the car, it's I call him. And when does that call start? Well, it happens in February of 2008. And the phones illustrate this conspiracy. It is not a normal handyman relationship. There's the call, the week of Valentine's Day. It's in yellow. You'll have all these records. That's a 1,000-second phone call. I cannot do that math. That is close to, I want to say if 600 seconds is probably 10 minutes. You know, you're getting close to maybe a 16 or 7-minute phone call to start. But then look at these records. I mean, you'll have all the numbers and stuff, but look, in March, he's talking to his handyman for 42 minutes. What? There's a 13-minute call in March. We've got, I mean, look at the colors. I mean, like the people in his life are basically Miller, his wife, his voicemail, and Lizzie. That's it. This is now we're getting into May. This is essentially the week of the murder. Look at the 2 people he's talking to the most. And this is the week up. So he's away with Sharon in Utah, and he is blowing up Miller. They are talking a ton. On the 5th, there is a 27-minute phone call on the 5th to your handyman while you're on vacation in Utah. Well, not on vacation because you're tending to family. And then, I'm sorry, so you got that one on the 5th, and then you got on the 8th a 39-minute phone call. Maybe that's a mistake. It should say 5-8, not 3-8. Those are huge numbers. And essentially, that's that kind of repeat of that call. But look how many times on 2 days before, those are 2 11-minute phone calls. While he should be tending to his family, he's talking to his handyman. This was never a normal relationship. This was a conspiracy. He groomed that guy, found a desperate person, desperate enough to do it. And Clifton was so concerned about that relationship, he warned him. Mike, if you continue to associate with this guy, you're going to end up shot. And Clifton was dead on right. Here's a question. There's this whole thing about propping up the door. Why would someone prop open the door at the end of the night when you're off to go plan to have sex with your wife? Who at the end of the night leaves their garage door open? No one. No one. It's not a thing. You might do it during the day if you're coming in and out. You might do it if you want to keep eyes on the person. But this doesn't make sense. And then you see, one of the things we mentioned at the beginning was pay attention in opening. I said, pay attention to kind of how he evolves and how he talks to the police. It really changes. And as the investigation drags on, in his opinion, and it's not getting wrapped up, by June 3rd, he's pretty confrontational and or nasty to the police. And that should give you a window into kind of what he's thinking. He is not happy that they haven't just gone away. So he can just do his insurance and they're just pesky. They're floating there. And he's kind of had enough and he starts taking shots.
I had to figure out what the fuck you guys was doing that night. You left the clip in my pocket from the gun. You left the clip in my pocket in my briefcase. I had like 2 or 3 grand, I think, in my.
We gave you the money back.
So that's what I say.
Why would we take your money?
Yeah, but I didn't think he was going to steal my money. But I didn't expect actually to come out after talking to 911 and have all these fuckers pointing guns at me and handcuff me. And then when I say I'm disabled, and, this is really starting to hurt, and, one of the prayers, and I don't know which one it was a plain close one, I kept saying, what the fuck is taking so long? There's only one, the door's open, I just was in there for 10 minutes, here's the keys, there's a fucking door pad there, what is taking so fucking long? Because I seen the cops on the shotguns and the pads, and I thought, this, I thought you guys like killing people, that's this, that's what all the news says, it's just, play stereo too loud, and they'll shoot you. You're a little crazy, you got a screaming truck, and they'll shoot you. That's what I said. Where's the killer cops when we need them, And I got all the pussies here this night, And I told them, this is ridiculous, fuck, if she's not dead, she's gonna be dead by the time you guys get in there. And I realize now, I guess it was in there already, and said it was dead. Okay, we'll see. I didn't know that. They kept telling me, well, we can't get him, we can't get him. They kept coming up and asking me where the pad was, what the keypad number was, and I kept telling them it's really funky. You gotta push this first and that
That's
first.
since they had to clear the garage.
Well, like I said, I didn't know, and I told him, I said, fuck, man, I'll drag her to the goddamn door so you guys can trigger, just, and I asked one of them, I kept, are we sending testicle, and he said, lean against the car, and I moved, and one of them, set me down on the ground by the collar, says, you move from there, you're gonna know what pain really is like, and I know you cocksucker, you don't have a clue what fucking pain is like, but, yeah.
So, back to Miller. Well, how was that?
Is
there anything
I can't tell you.
involved that happened that day that made him believe that he needed to get into your house that night?
I did, I took 20 grand out of the bank, I had 20 grand transferred, and it's I like you. You I don't like, by the way. I don't know why, I just don't like you.
And we also heard testimony that, on a subsequent day, he again expressed his displeasure to the lead detective in this case.
So actually, I hate asking for my adult since I just told you I didn't like you.
Sorry, I don't take it personally.
And so listen, this is, look, he's a colorful guy, right? But is that the tone he was using on night one? The answer is no. So why the change? The state would submit the change in his attitude, his aggression, the insults, the jabs, is because Metro won't stop digging. He wants them off his tail.
It's not that I don't trust, but I think I'll take my back. Is your wife good?
What do you think?
To kill for. Have you seen that with Nicole Kidman?
No, another shot at O'Kelly. Here's the thing. The defendant also gave 3 interviews, and you have them all, right? Including that walkthrough, right? So that's the 3. Take a good look. The evidence will show he didn't shed a single tear. He doesn't take a single moment to compose himself. At any point in time, recounting literally losing the best thing that ever happened to him. Does he appear, here's a question for you. Does the defendant appear to be a man that is in mourning over his beloved wife? No. Instead, you get things like this.
So if she goes into the house, all right, she walks in to the garage into that hallway, what would have been the first thing she would have done? Because obviously you weren't back in the house yet.
It was my understanding she was able to watch the pussy was going to sex. But that was the plan.
I understand colorful language, but again, these are 2 strangers, right, that are doing this investigation, and that's your word choice over a woman that's literally been gone now for 4 weeks. That's how you describe that. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's how he chose to say it, over his beloved wife. And then there's
I
this.
just had to jerk her. There wasn't, it wasn't like a gentle, loving thing by any means. It was like, and about the 3rd time it jerked enough that she got up kind of straight up, and I just had to push her over. And she came over, and it was the grossest thing I had ever seen in my life. And my wife that died of a heart defect was pretty gross, but just really thick, blobby stuff coming out of the mouth.
You get to weigh this. You get to weigh it and evaluate it. Because is this guy really, this is a week later. A week later. I understand that you have to do a walkthrough, but that's how he chooses. Those are his word choices. That's the emotion that he is reflecting. And let's be fair, when you look at all of his interviews, especially the last one, like, he's not shy of sharing emotion from time to time, right? He can be an animated guy.
Judge, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he was not forced to do a walkthrough. I think he just misspoke.
Okay, I apologize. If I said that, I apologize.
I just had to, and I'll tell you what else too. It drives me crazy, and I'd love for her to do it right now. But she will leave 6 or 7 pair of shoes out. I don't know how many times I've hurt my back getting up in the middle of the night trying to be quiet because I don't sleep at nights. And all of a sudden it's, motherfuck, Sharon Jesus. And she'll have 6 or 7 pair of shoes out. Just, it's like, she booby traps the place. And that's what I thought. Maybe she had tripped over her own shoes and fallen.
And again, these are small little things, but the state would submit it. It's a window into the level of remorse that he's having for this woman. This is like 7 days later.
It's not that I don't trust her, I think I'll take it back with me.
So you have this part. And then this is in this interview. And when we're evaluating, this is another thing that happens in this interview.
Come in, for that. I pissed him off, didn't I? Oh, well. Well, that's good, because I didn't want to, I wasn't even fan. I figured his wife is cute. This is, I think that's the name of it, to die for with, Jesus Christ, I love her. Tom Cruise's ex-wife. For the long and Australia.
You don't have a kid?
Yeah, okay. She's got on that little dress with the guy that played Johnny Cash later, singing and Sharon Washington.
Oh.
And she's in the rain, and Sweet Home Alabama comes on. She just does that little thing with that little dress. She does just a little bit penny. God, I think that's just the sexiest woman alive.
I don't watch any movies.
It's the sexiest thing alive. All right? I mean, the state, does the defendant appear to be a guy who's moved on? This is just 4 weeks later. And here's the other kind of funny thing. I don't know if anyone's actually seen the movie To Die For, but it's literally about a woman who convinces someone to kill her spouse. That's actually what the movie's about. Then there's some of the slips of the defendant. Here's one. It's in the 911 call. Listen to what he says.
He's in the garage. He was running out the garage as I was getting out, as I was coming in.
Oh, getting out of what? Your car? Is that it? And then he changes it up. That's a weird little slip. Is that consistent with anything you've heard from any of his other interviews? No. So factor that in. Here's another interesting one. The OJ slip.
So you mentioned the dream team. Gotta ask. You think OJ did it?
Fuck yeah, he did it.
Why?
No, actually, I think OJ did it. No, I do not think he did it. I think he's smarter than that. He had a lot of money. He could have hired it done.
I think he's smarter than that. He could have hired it done. And he's the smartest guy in the room, right? What did he do in this case? Well, the evidence shows he hired someone to get it done. Interesting. Then we get to the defense witnesses. We have Mr. Hogue, who the state would submit offered nothing of any substance. Okay, so his stuff went missing, but we don't even know if Miller took it. We know Miller has it, which isn't a good thing, but we don't know anything more than that. Does that really shed any light about what happens inside that house? Absolutely not. And then we get to Mr. Stafford. The state was certainly pleased with Mr. Stafford's testimony because he shed a lot of light on things. He let us know that people who are devising plans to get rid of people are not really in the same shoes as some of these officers and soldiers that are using their weapons in the line of duty. Why? Because they're not under the same situation. They're not being thrust all of a sudden with danger upon them. They're creating the environment. They know what to expect. He's made it very clear that those are two very, very different things. Who was he describing unwittingly? Mr. Randolph. And then he went through as an officer and just walked through all these different motives that are applicable to our case that explain potentially why he's the guy who did it. And then also explain that you should be, a good way to double check and fact check someone, things like review records and 911 calls and all, you name it. It was a great witness for the state. We love this testimony. So I want to address some of the other things that were mentioned in the defense closing. Context is key. The defense opened up with, there isn't a single bullet strike in this hallway. The state said that. Context is key. If you remember, what I said was there isn't a strike in the hallway where the defendant said he shot. I was talking about that part of the hallway.
That's not what he said. That's incorrect and that's false.
Well, you actually replayed what was said, so ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to remember the testimony as they hear it, as they heard it, as well as they remember from the argument.
Yeah. Go check your notes. Think about contextually what I was talking about. Do you think I would get that detail off? No. It's a clever argument, but it's being taken out of context. Defendant did what a normal person would do when he saw his wife. Really? He didn't run to her. He actually wanted to go to the neighbors. He avoids giving CPR, and then he walks around the house. You saw the video. Go watch it. He's walking in every other room rather than getting to the phone. Your wife is bleeding out. You'd be racing to, if you're not racing to her, you're racing to the phone. And that's not what he's doing. And then we'd submit he's doing offering to do anything else but help her. That is not what a normal person does in that scenario. Tommy fought to save her life. Remember this outrage?
I got real upset the other night because I thought she laid there on that cold floor by herself, and I could have been in here with her. Well, those guys were out fucking around with helicopters and dogs because I didn't know they were doing it.
He was really upset about that. But listen to what he
Okay,
says.
let's focus on your wife. Who's not your wife? He did? He did. Okay, put her flat on her back. Put her flat on her back. I hope it's here. Should I try to find his gun or something so don't shoot him if he's not there? I'm gonna put this thing down with my gun. She don't seem to be moving. I got the gun. Okay, you got his gun away from him? Yeah. Okay, then focus on your wife. Put her flat on her back. I'm gonna walk through the garage so he can't get in. Okay. Sir, you gotta do this quickly. Okay. Put her flat on her back. Oh, fuck, there's blood everywhere. You're right. Just place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the center of her chest, right between the nipples. Put your other hand on top of that. I just want you to continue to do compressions. Keep doing them. I can open the garage door. No, keep doing what I'm telling you to do. You need to do this.
That is not fighting to save someone's life. Timeline of shots. We submit that in a worst case scenario for the defendant, he waited 12 minutes before calling 911. Funny's at 8:26. He's at the turn bank. They show the video. Okay, so that's 8:27. That doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't get home around 8:30. But the Bartlett call shows he's on the phone at 8:33, right? So we know that he's home by that time, by 8:33. Bartlett says early in the call he hears shots. There's some cross-examination questions about all the little things that happened, but check your notes on that. The statement submit. Bartlett says fairly early in the call, I'm hearing shots. Not the moment the call happens, but fairly early on. Okay. Bartlett says we know the Bartlett call is 4 minutes and 30 seconds, right? It's in the record. So worst case, shots are fired at 8:37:30. Worst case, right? It's the very end of the call, which is not Bartlett's testimony, but if you're giving all the benefits of that, you're at 8:37:30, right? Then that means he waits 7 minutes before calling 911 with his wife died. We've been here a long time, so I'm not going to stand here. One technique sometimes people do is they stand for a minute, just so you can see how long it is. I encourage you guys, sit around and wait for 7 minutes and see how long that is. And then imagine this is a woman bleeding out, your wife bleeding out. Why are you not on that phone? That's the worst case. And best case is shots are, for the state, is that shots are fired at 8:30, he's waiting 12 minutes. Here's the thing, even in the defense closing, they believe it's 6 minutes. It doesn't matter if it's 6, 7, or 12. That's unacceptable. If you truly want to save your wife, you're not waiting 6, 7, or 12 minutes. There was a comment, we don't convict people because they use crass language. We agree. We convict people when their statements are completely repelled by the evidence, when they invent things out of thin air, when they have 332,000 reasons to kill someone, and when they foster a completely bizarre relationship with a desperate man that defies common sense. Are there any dents? Check your notes. The question posed was to the side of the fridge. I brought it up in redirect to clear it up. That's the side, and the reason why that question is posed, because Randolph says that's the side he banged into. The dent, if you look at the pictures, is at the front, which would be impossible for Miller to do. He doesn't say, like, Miller ran by the fridge and then turned and jumped into the front of the fridge. That didn't happen. Not according to Mr. Randolph. And the statement said, look, there's no evidence of this, but you can use your common sense. It's in the front. Could it be consistent with maybe a car pulling up to front and denting the front of the fridge? Yeah, it could. But at the end of the day, the point was, where he said this big collision happened didn't happen. On the side of the fridge closest to the doorway. Then there was this comment that he's a burglar and he has to worry about people when he's leaving, right? That was the comment, like, that's why he has to wear the mask. So you're going to waltz out of the garage door in front of all the neighbors who have all their home security cameras, however many are back in 08. Is that the move? No, that's not the move. You're not going to waltz and then you come waltzing out with your bags and stuff. Like, that's not happening. He's not doing that, especially when he came in through the back door. You just go out the way you came. It defies common sense. Then there's this comment about, oh, he wore his burgling. I call them burgling boots. But, like, he wears the boots because he's worried about leaving footprints? Here's the thing. Really? Cowboy boots leave fairly distinctive prints. He has, and they're literally boots that are being given to them by the Randolphs. Those are not the shoes to be wearing if you're going to be burglaring their house. Wear something more universal, like a set of tennies. Gosh, if he only had a set of tennis shoes with him. Oh, right, he did. But he wasn't wearing them. And who runs off in boots? It's not a thing. Why would he grab the .22? The state of Smith, Miller never had it. He never had that gun. He had the 38, and he dropped it when the job was done. And then he gets basically double-crossed in the garage, and now the defendant grabs the gun where he knows it is and throws it by him. That's what we submit happens. Miller dressed the part, burglaring boots, an extra set of clothes, an extra set of tennis shoes, and a lucky baseball cap. That's the cat burglar outfit? No, it's not. There was a comment about coming into money, right? And he says, don't take my word for it. And he played you testimony from Vita Miller, right? But what did they do when they played that clip? They totally ignored Billy, because Billy talked about that same comment, coming into money. His uncle by blood, who has a closer relationship than Vita. That's what, I think even Vita kind of said that. Like, I don't really interact with him that much. Like, he's not my blood cousin or my blood nephew. It's really my husband's. So what did Billy say? He said, he's coming into money. I'm getting the money from Randolph. He is hiring me to be his driver because his bad back. And oh, by the way, have you ever heard anyone through the course of this trial and interviews or complaining about a bad back? Multiple witnesses talk about it. It's Randolph. So compare, and here's the thing, and you get to be the judge of this. Compare Vita's recall to Billy's. Who has a better command of the facts when looking back? Was it Billy or Vita? You can make the call. But Mr. Miller, meaning Billy, gives a whole lot more detail about that story. And look, it's a pretext, right? Oh, I'm going to be the driver. I'm coming into money from Randolph. I'm going to be the driver. No, you can't tell your uncle, hey, I'm going to go ice this lady, and then I'm going to get rich from insurance. Like, you can't say that. So you're going to be the driver. And then you're bouncing, which makes sense. Why would you want to stick around in the state at that point? You leave. And then there's this comment like the defendant, or if defendant, I wrote defendant meant to be Miller. If Miller really wants nothing more to do with Randolph, right? That was what Vita said. So then I would submit to you this. Why does Clifton stop warning him to stop affiliating with Randolph, or he would get shot shortly before the murder? If what Vita is saying is totally true, why is Clifton saying that to him? Because the relationship is not stopping. Why do the phone records show constant contact if Vita is dead on right about this? It contradicts that notion. And why does Randolph even admit he spent the whole day of the murder with him? There were so many people at the scene. Really? Not very many people enter the house. Check the testimony of all the witnesses. 4 or 5 went in. They went in through the front door. They checked on Sharon. They froze the premises. And then basically it's frozen for a really long time until ID can get out there. There's a canine unit and one other guy, a gang or violent, they clear the garage. And then they just kind of wait. So check your notes on that. Was that like a herd of elephants coming through or something different? It's a double. And what do these guys all tell you about the level at which they want to make sure people aren't trampling through the scene on a double? It's heightened. I mean, it should for every scene, but like, look, it's pretty serious. It's a frozen scene. And then even in the defense slide that they threw out one paramedic went inside, which, if you think about it, actually makes sense, right? Sharon has no leads on her because she's really dead. And then they just put a couple leads on that guy, but they don't transport him because he's dead. And that's what they say. If people have a spark of life left in them, they're taking them out. They didn't take either one of them out. So we know from their slide, one paramedic went inside. And again, there is a distinction between police coming to respond to a scene versus actually walking through the scene. They seem to abandon the garage light. Okay, well, I'm just going to very briefly discuss it. I think I kind of covered it with O'Kelly, but look, here's the deal. That light goes off in 5 minutes and 8 seconds. If you call, if you, literally the shots are happening at 8:33 or 8:37, whatever you want to do, the light in the garage is off when he is calling 911 at 8:44:54. It's off. And when you listen to the call, the going for the Miller, like finding the Miller gun, happens 3 minutes later. So the light's not automatically going off on him. And it doesn't matter if you look at the walkthrough. Randolph's like, yeah, I kind of closed the garage, but then I walked in. I was like, oh, I don't want to run to Sharon. I want to run to my neighbor's house. So I hit the button. Fine. It's a couple seconds later. You're still getting the same timeline. The importance of the garage light is it did not go off when he said it was going off. That's the point. Just like so many other things contradict him. And there was this comment, like, why would Randolph come up with these ridiculous things? Because he is the unreliable narrator. He invents conversations that never happen. He changes locations of guns. He can't figure out if he's withdrawing or taking out money. But most importantly, the clearest answer to the question is this. He's simply not telling the truth. Who here has life insurance? Well, I have a question. Who here has life insurance on a person you're dating, like he did with Sharon in 2006? Who prepped the paperwork? We would submit the defendant. One of the things you can check is all those docs were formed in Utah. Some of them are fully typewritten. You're never going to be able to determine that. Now, you do have some testimony from someone else who said, Liz said he tended to do all the paperwork for me. That doesn't necessarily mean he did it for Sharon, but you can give it whatever weight you want. Whose idea was it? When you heard testimony from people close in Sharon's orbit, it was the defendant's idea to get the life insurance. And he even says, it's like, I get life insurance. Like, he didn't shy away from it. Check the testimony. And who else loves to go around and buy urns? That's the defendant. That's his thing. Actions speak louder than words, is something said, and we agree. Leaving your wife repeatedly to be with another woman, repeatedly calling and socializing and hiring with an inept stranger and bringing him into your home, taking the stranger out shooting, waiting 12 minutes before calling 911, offering any other suggestion other than performing CPR on your wife as she is bleeding out, and becoming nasty with the police and your daughter-in-law when you learn you may not be able to inherit as much as you thought because of a competing will or that an investigation hasn't gone away. Actions speak louder than words. Justifiable homicide and self-defense. The evidence is demonstrated in this case beyond a reasonable doubt that he conspired to murder his wife with Miller. And when you come to that conclusion, you don't get justifiable homicide. You don't get self-defense because you have planned the whole thing. He double-crossed Miller, and he's not entitled to either of these offenses. All the signs were there. Sharon's family was concerned. Deirdre warned her that he might try to kill you. Miller's family thought it was strange. Clifton warned Miller, you're going to end up shot. You have a desperate accomplice. You have Miller essentially revealing this pretextual plan to Billy a couple of days before the murder. We're moving out of state, right? I've just covered that. And then what else do you have? Massive debt, gambling habits, a lack of income, an ultimatum, multiple life insurance policies, the potential of a house, and a story that doesn't add up. On May 8, 2008, the defendant decided Sharon Randolph had outlived her use to him. And at the beginning of this case, you made a commitment to follow the law. And when we look at this reasonable doubt instruction, you'll have the full instruction. But one of the things I want to point out is that for doubt to be reasonable, it must be actual, not mere possibility or speculation. It actually has to be actual. In this case, there is no reasonable doubt. And you have made that commitment to follow the law. It is really, really hard to plan the perfect murder. And this has been a search for the truth. And this is the inconvenient truth of the defendant. He got caught. He's not the smartest man in the room. So the one question you're left to answer is Thomas Randolph a victim or a villain? We ask that you find him guilty on all counts. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the clerk is now going to swear in the officers and take charge of the jury.
Raise your hand. You do solemnly swear that you will keep this jury together in some private and convenient place, that you will not permit any person to speak to them, nor speak to them yourself, unless it be by order of the court, except to ask them whether they have agreed upon a verdict, and that you will return them into court when they have so agreed, so help you God.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, a criminal jury is composed of 12 members, and there are currently 14 of you who are here. That is because 2 of you will serve as our alternate jurors. This means that you are not discharged from your jury service. Your service may still be needed if one of the other jurors is no longer able to participate in the deliberations. In this case, the alternate jurors are going to be juror number 13 and juror number 14. So when I excuse the jury momentarily, I'm going to need jurors 1 through 12 to follow the marshals out through that door as you will go in the back and begin jury deliberations. Jurors 13 and 14, I'm going to ask that you remain seated, and as soon as they have left the room, you will follow my assistant. She'll meet you on the other side of that door, and she will collect contact information for you because we might need you to come back in and join in the jury deliberation. So at this point, I'm going to excuse jurors 1 through 12 for deliberation.
All rise for the jury.
Okay, and if you two could go right outside the door, my assistant will meet you right outside the door and collect information. Okay, you guys can all be seated. All right, so we will be in recess until the jury reaches a verdict. We'll keep them here until 5, and then I'll let them go at 5, but you guys can just leave them.
Sure. We have a matter we have to bring up.
Okay.
For appellate review. Your Honor, Mr. Hamner put up jury instruction 43, the credibility of
All right, Crime Spies, that is the end of the trial. The rebuttal by the prosecution has just concluded. Yesterday, we had to cut the live stream before that was played, so I just wanted to add this as part 2. So now we're on jury verdict watch. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And as soon as there's a verdict in from the jury, I do already have a live stream set up. The time is just kind of a random time tomorrow. But depending on if it comes in today or whatever, I'll just flip it to live. So that's where you can find it. All right. Well, have a great day, and we will see you very, very soon.
Well, we've made it through another day of the Tommy Reggie trial. Suffered some. Tune in tomorrow for another day of testimony. See you then.